relevant to our world today, especially after
I hope so.
yeah, but especially after Elon Musk took over Twitter and X, and there was this narrative, or like he was saying, X is the universal, place where ideas need to be heard, and it took this different turn from the previous, owners of where you would see a lot more people banned. There was a big amount of people that were unbanned on X. And I'll give you the example of Kanye West. So he had this whole thing where he was going around, with this like, Nazi, all my friends are Nazis, Heil
Mm.
Hitler, all this stuff that was, you know, on one side had a cost to a lot of people, but on the other side, that's free speech empowerment. Uh,
And yeah, like people would support Kanye West having his Twitter because that's free speech for you. He has the right to offend. But then clearly people have incurred costs from having to be subjected to Heil Hitler, and that gets like 100,000 retweets, and you're seeing us all over the timeline. So how do you sort of balance it? It's quite hard.
Well, I agree that it's quite hard. What I'm going to say is really part of my current work, but also the work of my co-author, who's been much more involved in this. He's a linguist
Mm.
and a philosopher of language named Robert May, and we've been thinking about this. And he, with another co-author of his, has been thinking about it for a long time. So I don't want to take credit for it.
Mm.
I've added something, but I don't want to take credit for something someone else has done. I think the first question is, uh, if you say it's a question of free speech versus non-free speech, whatever, right away, right? And it's just free speech, someone else gets hurt, and so on and so forth. Lots of ways of dealing with this. But first, I want to challenge the idea that um, when when if it were really just free speech, it would be purporting to make something that has content. If I were to say all black people are N word,
Mm.
or all Jewish people are K word, well, just use those for an example. Use that as a slur. And then I say, it's just free speech, man. It's just free speech.
Mm.
Well, I think what you're saying uh, may or may not be free speech, but I do want to say the following. It's distinctive, it's clearly, it's essentially what racism is.
Mm.
And you have to understand what racism really is. What racism is making claims that couldn't possibly be true. It's not an empirical claim. It's not an empirical claim to say all Jews are K words. It's not an empirical claim because there are no people who are K words. Because the meaning of K word is someone who lacks moral worth merely in virtue of their being Jewish. There is no content that it couldn't possibly ever be true that someone lacks moral worth simply in virtue of being Jewish.
Mm.
It couldn't possibly be true that someone lacks moral worth in virtue entirely of being black.
Mm.
It's not an empirical claim. It's a claim that is necessarily false
Mm.
because the concept is empty. It has no extension. It doesn't refer to anything in the real world. But people are trying to pass it off as if it were an empirical claim that we could debate.
Mm.
But it's not open to debate. It's not open to debate. Now, that's a controversial question, which I'm prepared to defend, and other people are prepared to defend. But I want people to come to realize how important it is when people are making claims which are controversial and could be true.
Mm.
So, for example, that God created the universe is controversial, but could be true. Unlikely, say, but it could be true. Uh, and saying he's just a damn N-word, and mean by that to condemn him as in the sense of not being worthy of any respect as a moral agent, merely in virtue of his being black.
Mm.
That's not possibly true. That's what makes slurs so horrible. That, if you think that's free speech, and now I'm not saying that the only things that can be count as free speech are things that could either be true or false, right? Or that are empirical or are contestable.
Mm.
But the point of that kind of speech is merely to harm. It's merely to downgrade others.
Okay.
It isn't to convey information. It
Mm.
isn't to start or open up a debate for which there might be some fact of the matter that would help us to resolve it.
Okay.
It's designed entirely to irritate, harm, offend, and diminish. And worse, it's designed to allow others and encourage others to feel comfortable
Mm.
holding the same attitude.
Okay. So, do you think we need a footnote on the First Amendment,
Yeah.
and we should edit that in?
No, 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 because I don't know what would be edited in because if you hate speech can sometimes be absolutely protected speech. So, for example, you can have Nazis marching in the streets, right, of Jewish neighborhoods. You can have white people, right, uh, marching in the streets um, of a largely black neighborhood, saying, for example, things like, uh, close down the shops here, don't sell to the in this neighborhood, go somewhere else, or and not trying to tie it to any other reason other than it's black people.
Mm.
It's kind of a hate speech. It's designed to irritate and offend and so on. And the Constitution apparently protects a large part of it. So I don't think it's just that. I'm really just trying to pick out what the signature is of racism of which we have in our world today an extraordinary amount of, how should I put this, permission structure for.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I have a very strong desire to try to make clear the status of racism. Racists are people who act in racist ways. One of the ways in which they act in racist ways is making racist assertions.
Mm.
Mm.
And the assertions that they make, like the ones I gave, right, are empty. They're false. They're necessarily false. They're just necessarily false. They can never be satisfied. They're unsatisfiable because there is no person who's a human being. They're designed to dehumanize.
Right. But
Mm.
I feel like on the free speech, people would say, hey, these claims are absolutely false. We all can agree that any statement where we're gonna categorize all of these people are this is obviously false. It has no substance. So it's fine being out there because people can say because people can recognize that it has no substance and it can be proved wrong easily. And that we shouldn't, you know, the second we
But
start putting legislation there, then we get into this tricky
Situation.
situation.
well, I think you'd want to say about that. Why are you saying it if you know that it's necessarily false?
I would say the person saying it doesn't know it,
But it
But
is necessarily
or
false.
maybe deep inside they do, and they're just angry and suffering. And
but isn't that the issue? Is that the people saying black people are N words? They believe that, like they have this view that black
That's
people are
why they're
less,
racist. They're
and they want
racist.
to espouse that, and it's hard to,
Yes.
you know,
Well, I'm not trying to convince them.
hmm.
I'm not trying to convince them. I'm trying to convince everybody else.